In the beginning, there were roads that had no names. Dust rose from the feet of wanderers who carried no flag, no kingdom, and no promise of return. Among those wanderers were a people who called no land their own, yet left their music, their fire, and their spirit wherever they passed. They are known today by many names: Roma, Romani, Sinti, Kalderash, Dom, Lom, and in the languages of outsiders, the Gypsies. But long before Europe gave them that name, they were children of an older son, born on the plains of northern India. Yet, if we look deeper, far beyond memory, beyond recorded history, there was a time when their distant ancestors roamed the northern steppes of Central Asia. They were part of the ancient Indo-European migrations, people who carried language itself like fire across continents. From those winds came the early tongues that flowed into India, taking root and giving birth to the Sanskrit songs that would one day echo in the speech of the Roma. Their story, then, begins both in the north wind and in the Indian dust. One ancient, one eternal. Their true beginning, however, belongs to India. More than 1,000 years ago, in the kingdoms of Rajasthan, Punjab, and Sindh, lived tribes of musicians, dancers, blacksmiths, traders, and animal tamers. They spoke in early tongues that would later form the roots of the Romani language, a language that still carries Sanskrit words even after centuries of exile. These were not a single tribe, but many, the Dom, Banjara, Nath, and Kalbilia among them, each known for their crafts and wandering livelihoods. Some entertained in royal courts, others worked as metalworkers, basket weavers, or horse traders. They fixed pots, sharpened blades, told fortunes, and sang songs of love and loss under the stars. But history, as it often does, scattered them. Sometime between the 5th and 11th centuries, waves of conflict swept across India. Invasions from the northwest, the collapse of kingdoms, and the constant search for safety and work. One group after another began to move westward. Small caravans, families, musicians, artisans, crossing the Sind deserts into Persia, then through Armenia and Byzantium. They carried little more than tools, instruments, and stories, and a language that, though it would change, never lost its Indian soul. In Persia, they were known as Zot, or Domari. The Persian kings welcomed some of them as musicians, the Luri people, brought to entertain courts and nobles. Others worked as smiths, tanners, and animal trainers. But as centuries passed, they became strangers once again, accused of stealing, of witchcraft, of being outsiders. They moved further west, through Mesopotamia, Syria, and Anatolia, the roads of empire that connected Asia to Europe. By the time Europe began to record their presence around the 14th and 15th centuries, they had already traveled thousands of miles. They arrived in the Byzantine lands as mysterious dark-skinned pilgrims who claimed to come from Little Egypt, hence the name Gypsy. They said they were penitents, wandering as a form of devotion. Europe, wrapped in superstition, believed them to be travelers cursed or blessed by God. Some thought them magicians, others heretics. But what they really were survivors. They entered the Balkans hungry and the lands of Eastern Europe, territories torn between the Ottoman and Christian worlds. Here, they found work in whatever form survival allowed. Men became blacksmiths, making nails, knives, and tools. Women became healers, fortune-tellers, and musicians. Some worked with horses, some repaired copper, others danced for nobles. And though Europe saw them as wanderers without loyalty, they carried deep within them the echo of a lost homeland, one that their tongues still whispered in traces of Sanskrit and Hindi. Through the centuries, their music became their language of resistance. It absorbed the sounds of every land they passed: Persian strings, Greek rhythms, Balkan drums, and Spanish guitars. In the deserts of Andalusia, their descendants gave birth to flamenco. In Hungary and Romania, their violins turned sorrow into beauty. Everywhere they went, they changed music. And music, in turn, carried their soul across continents. But freedom came at a cost. As Europe entered the age of suspicion, the Gypsies became targets of fear. In the 16th and 17th centuries, kingdoms passed laws forbidding their movement, their speech, and their very existence. In England, They were hunted and executed. In France and Spain, their children were taken from them to be civilized. In Eastern Europe, especially under the Austro-Hungarian and Romanian empires, they were enslaved for hundreds of years, tied to noble estates, forced to labor without pay, their names erased. The free people of the road had become property of others. Still, they sang. They danced in the face of hate, played music in the shadows of oppression, and remembered who they were, even when the world tried to forget them. Their culture became a quiet rebellion, color in a gray world. Their songs spoke of wind and fire, of a God who sees all wanderers, and of roads that always lead home, even when no home remains. Then came the 20th century, and with it, the darkest night of their history. During World War II, the Nazi regime in Germany declared them racially inferior, asocial, and non-Aryan. Across Europe, Romani people were rounded up, imprisoned, and sent to concentration camps. Historians call it porajmos, the devouring. More than 500,000 Roma men, women, and children were killed, burned, shot, or starved. Their voices were silenced, their music muted, their stories buried. Yet few remember that the Gypsies suffered beside the Jews in the same camps, under the same terror. Their tragedy was forgotten, their graves unmarked. When the war ended, survivors emerged from ashes with nothing, no land, no recognition, no reparations. But they carried what no empire could destroy: their pride in movement, their language, and their music. They rebuilt in the shadows of cities, in camps and caravans. And though modern states tried to make them settle, they continued to live between worlds, not fully part of any, but touching all. Today, the Roma number between 10 and 12 million across the world, from Spain to Russia, from Brazil to the Middle East. Some have integrated into modern life: artists, politicians, activists. Others still live in poverty, pushed to society's edges, discriminated against for their difference. Yet their culture remains vibrant, resilient, unbroken. Their music still burns with longing. Their dances echo the steps of ancient India, and their language, though changed, still carries the heartbeat of Sanskrit words like Manush, human, and Raj, king. They are no longer just performers, but storytellers, craftsmen, metalworkers, horse trainers, and healers, keepers of an old world rhythm that modern civilization forgot. Their tents may be fewer, their caravans replaced by roads and cities, but their spirit remains a reminder that freedom is not a destination, it is a way of being. From the steppes to India, from India to Persia, from Byzantium to Europe, from slavery to song, their journey is the story of humankind itself, to lose, to wander, and to endure. The Gypsies have no single homeland, because their home was never a place. It was, and still is, the road, the sound of footsteps on dust, the fire that refuses to die. And somewhere in their songs, carried across centuries of exile, you can still hear the whisper of their origin, from the land where it all began. India, cradle of their tongue, rhythm of their heart, and the home they still remember in dreams. For theirs is a story not of loss, but of survival. A people without borders, without kings, yet richer than any nation in memory, in music, and in soul. The Gypsies, children of the road, guardians of an ancient freedom, still walk among us, still sing of the world that once was, and still remind us of what it means to belong everywhere and nowhere at all.